So there's 3 types of graduated exposure practice that we're going to go through. The first one is called Interoceptive Exposure. Long word, strange word. Basically, you're going to lose your fear of the bodily symptoms of panic. Second exposure practice, real life. It's called in vivo exposure. This is where you lose your fear of external situations. Actually, you're going to lose your fear of panic in external situations. And this is going to include dropping some of those safety behaviours that are maintaining the cycles of fear. Third practice is imaginal exposure. So you can fall back on this if you find the other exposures too much too soon. Imaginal exposure, you can face the fear in your imagination first. So you can even do it that gradually. You can get used to it just in your mind first of all. Learning from graduated exposure. You get a lot more from exposure practice, and it'll work much quicker if you follow certain steps, if you take a note of everything, if you use an exposure worksheet, okay, so that you can always look at it, see how well you're doing, see any problems that are occurring. You get everything down on paper, and this will speed up the recovery process. So there's a before, during, and after. Before exposure practice, first thing you want to do is identify your anxious thoughts and predictions about the feared situation or sensation that you're going to practice with. Okay, that makes sense. So you've got a feared situation or sensation, and you want to make sure you find out what your exact anxious thoughts and predictions are. Use the downward arrow technique in workbook number 2. Then you're going to create alternative perspectives based on your new understanding. You're going to restructure those anxious thoughts and predictions from what you've learnt in workbook number 1. Then you can identify safety behaviours that you normally use with this situation or surrounding this symptom. Because the practice, you're going to drop some of the safety behaviours, you're going to experiment with that, see what happens. Now to help you, you create relevant flashcards and worksheets to help you each step of the way, and troubleshoot any problems that could arise during the practice. So we're going to go through this step by step in the following pages. During exposure practice, now this is when the real learning takes place. This is when you move from theoretical learning to experiential learning. You learn from direct experience, and that's much deeper learning. Remember, you're only going to be doing this very gradually. You'll only face as much anxiety as you feel you can handle at any one time. But this will give you the chance to observe all your unhelpful thoughts, how you misinterpret, how you catastrophize, and how you're getting yourself caught up in cycles of fear. And can you see how important that would be? Because you've read that that's what you're doing, but you're not really totally sure that that's what you're doing until you do it. Then you can realize, I do that, so that is true. I am getting myself caught in cycles of fear. I'm sending fear signals through the body, and that's why the body is responding with more symptoms. Now I see it, and that'll help to begin with. But you can also apply your new understanding and see what happens. So you can restructure your thoughts and just see what happens when you do that, and your behavioural skills. Then you observe how the degree of belief in the old thoughts change as you apply your new alternative perspectives and behavioural skills. And you can monitor the changes in anxiety levels throughout the exposure practice. Remember from the panic attack diary, when you monitor anxiety levels, you're stepping back. You're not totally caught up in the anxiety. You're saying, okay, what level of anxiety am I feeling now? And then 5 minutes later, what level am I feeling now? That's stepping back. After the exposure practice, it's very important to record your findings in your exposure worksheet. Okay, that means you can just look at that every day and see where you are with the practice. And you can also consider ideas for further exposure practice. And lastly, on page number 7, it's extremely important that you practice this daily. Okay, the tiniest bit of exposure practice daily will make more difference than facing a big fear every week, just once a week. Regular, planned, gradual, repeated exposure practice speeds up the recovery. Okay, if you leave it too long between practice, your fear builds up again, so you've kind of wasted the practice you did do. If you repeat it every day, you get so used to it, you get even bored with it. Okay, so it's very important. Keep that in mind. Try your best to practice daily.